What's up, everybody? Brent Wofford here with the Northern Arizona Real Estate Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Our guest host is Jennifer Lueck with Jenn Lueck Photo. So today we're going to talk to you, specifically home sellers, not so much home buyers, but home buyers, you're going to find this entertaining because we are going to cover some controversial topics that are going to be spurred from buyer experiences in homes after they've seen the digital marketing, the photography of homes. So stay tuned for that. Jenn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I really
How are you doing
appreciate
today?
Good. It feels good to take a moment to sit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been running. You've been so busy. You do the
busy.
photography for our team, our real estate team, amongst other teams here, specifically in the Prescott area, right?
Yes, Prescott area. So Prescott, Chino, Paulden, Williamson Valley, as far as Cordes Junction.
Awesome.
And occasionally outside of that, on a very rare occasion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most notably, your photos I see constantly get put in on the cover of one of the local real estate magazines.
Yes. I love doing architecture and design work, especially. So if I know it's going to go on a cover, I'm typically trying to shoot it just a little bit different to kind of niche towards that design look.
Awesome. Yeah, good job. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Today we're tapping into the topic of real estate marketing, and let's just dive right in. So let's talk a little bit about the power of visual storytelling, specifically in Northern Arizona's unique market.
Yeah, so for sure, one of the things that I constantly hear from buyers is how much they've been impacted, or really how much photos, in particular photo or video, helps them decide what properties they're going to go look at. And so part of my job as a photographer is making sure that I'm showing that property in its best light, but true to what it actually looks like. So that might involve photos from the ground and also photos from the air, especially around here where we have a lot of ranch land or acreage, and it's much easier to portray that, from the air in drone.
We have quite the diverse landscape. I mean, that whole area that you said you cover, you're everything from, more grassy lands in northern Prescott Valley, Chino Valley, Williamson Valley is more like rolling hills and junipers, and then you're all the way down in the pines. That's my hat's off to you on being able to capture the diversity of those landscapes.
Well, it's never boring. It's always interesting. Basically, the choice of what we use to market, what kind of media we use to market, can definitely depend on exactly what you're talking about. The landscape of the area, size of the property, is it commercial versus residential? All of that plays into what we would be doing, especially in the pines where there's a lot of really heavy, dense tree coverage. That's going to impact how I photograph that land. For sure.
And you're still flying a drone in the forest?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's fun. I think that drone in the pines is an interesting. People have different opinions on whether that's beneficial or not. Sometimes I feel like drone up there can be just, here's your trees. You can't see anything. Once you rise above that tree level, the house kind of disappears. But flip side of that, if your property is on the edge of a hill, then sometimes getting maybe that backside of the house is only possible from the air. You can't get up there high enough to get a good shot where you're not looking straight up. So we just kind of dance our way up through the trees and get that shot regardless.
Awesome. So with that, how do you also capture the lifestyle of maybe that community or that the house is in, also in your media?
Right. So I will typically talk with my agent and find out, or the person ordering, what about this property makes it special? What is its selling feature? So, for example, if you're out there in the pines and it has a really big, beautiful deck, the views, what it's going to be like to live in that home is probably going to be a lot of time spent on that deck, in the evenings or in the morning with your coffee, that kind of thing. So we're really going to want to make sure we capture that.
Oh, that's smart.
If we're looking at the inside, if you have this beautiful, bright, airy, modern aesthetic, we want to show that off. So I'll shift how I shoot sometimes to be a little bit more, instead of that shooting into the corner look that you see in a lot of, I'll shoot more straight on, because modern properties tend to have very symmetrical designs. So I like to play that up and look at the lines of the house, which is more appealing to a buyer if they're looking for that kind of aesthetic, and the lifestyle that goes with it is more in line with that.
So you're not just pointing the camera in through a doorway in a room and just pulling the
the shutter
button?
Try not to. That gets very boring. And I honestly think that real estate media has moved beyond that. Buyers are expecting to look at pictures that do tell a story. They don't want, gone are the days of just walking in and pointing into a corner. That they're going to swipe right by that. You really want to make sure that property's set up to grab attention, because attention spans are short.
Yeah.
People are quickly swiping through things. Those first few photos, in particular, the main photo, the front of the house photo, your money shot, as you will, I think that one's a really important one to make sure you get the essence of the property.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. What is your take? So obviously we're talking about going beyond the basic photos of the basic, room shot through the doorway or the bathroom shot or whatever, your basic photos. You do a lot of twilight photography, don't you?
I do, yes.
I feel like I see it all the time.
Yes.
It's awesome. And I got another pivot on that, but we'll revisit that later because that goes into our controversial topics we're going to talk about.
Okay.
But give me a little experience, or tell the home sellers in Northern Arizona why twilight photography is important on the luxury listings.
So definitely, I always say it's better for the luxury listings. And typically the reason for that is luxury listings are going to tend to have really beautiful landscape lightings. They have higher end light fixtures, things like that you can't really see during the day. They're more dramatic. You're really going to capture that Arizona sunset look, which we're known for, and kind of going back into the lifestyle. If you think about what a seller is picturing when they're in a home, I think that evening coming home from work, being in that property, hosting get-togethers with family and friends, all tend to happen in the evenings. So showing what that property looks like lit up in its fullest potential, I just think it's more eye-grabbing, attention-grabbing than the regular standard daytime photos might be. It just kind of gives that more polished, high-end feel.
What's your opinion on having the main photo on a listing be a twilight photo instead of a daytime photo?
I think it really depends on the property. There are definitely houses that I think if there's a lot of greenery around or you're trying to show that off, sometimes daytime does look better. If the property is the bright light, airy type of property, sometimes daytime is going to show a lot better at daytime than versus twilight. So for me, that's really dependent on the property type and what you're trying to, how you're trying to portray that property. Okay. I know that didn't really answer it, but that's my honest opinion.
It does, because if it's the right property to where it's a outdoor focused lifestyle, like you're saying, like with a lot of mood lighting, maybe they've got pergolas, maybe they've got jacuzzi, things in the backyard, or even maybe the front yard that can be appealing more at nighttime or in the evening, like you said, when people are entertaining guests.
Right.
That might make sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
Cool. What about 3D tours or virtual tours? Are y'all doing any of that media?
Right. So just to clarify, you're meaning like the 3D walkthrough where a person goes in and is looking up, looking down, kind of that floor plan? Is that what you're referring to specifically?
Kind of all of it. I mean, as far as when it comes to like video tours, I've seen those 3D ones where you're actually, but that's more of like a Matterport. So I'd say that's different. Okay. Because that's more of an interactive click thing. But as far as video goes, with walking through a property with an agent that's touring the showing the home off, or virtual where it's like a video slideshow, or it's like a photo slideshow with music.
Right.
What do you cover? What do you do? What do you recommend?
Well, thank you for the clarification on that.
Yeah.
I'm noticing that rich media, I guess is kind of what it's called in my industry, where that's multiple types of media to represent a property, sometimes can be really beneficial, especially on properties with unusual layouts, or where you're just trying to show the flow of the property. Sometimes video or a floor plan is really beneficial for something like that, really showing the potential there. I often do properties with multiple types of media. It also comes back to how the agent is how they want to market that property. So if they're really heavy in social media, we'll do video reels, that kind of thing. If they're more sticking to the MLS, we'll do, media that works better with the MLS type of marketing.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your insight on that.
Yeah.
And that leads us to controversial topic number 1.
Oh, okay.
Ready?
I'm ready.
This is where it's going to get fun. Specifically, the topic is listing agents taking photos with their cell phones instead of hiring a professional photographer.
Right.
Like yourself. And
right.
More specifically, I mean, we've all seen it on Zillow, where you've got an agent that's maybe in the mirror of a bathroom because it's a full glass, and then you've got the
their arm.
Yeah, their arms
yeah.
in it, or
yeah.
I've seen them where their full on reflection is in it.
Yes.
So let's talk about that topic a little bit.
Sure, I have a lot of opinions on that one.
Yeah, let's.
I obviously am pretty biased. I always think that agents should hire a professional photographer, being one. But the reason behind that is because your photos are your first impression. When a buyer looks at a potential property, having photos that actually look like the property, that are higher quality, are always going to get more views online. Studies show that 82%, I believe it was, of buyers will choose to go look at a property based on the photos. I think that's especially important for our area, based on the fact that a lot of our buyers are from out of town. So if you have somebody moving from out of town and all they have to look at that property or that potential property is photos, you need them to be high quality and professional. The second part of that is usually list price, what they're sold for, tend to go, I think the study was 32% higher. They sell 32% higher than those without professional photos. And again, I think it's because more people are looking at that property, and therefore, more potential buyers can drive a price up. So it's super, super important. But the agents that aren't taking the time to hire a professional photographer, I think, are doing their sellers a disservice. It's not showing that they're invested in that property, because if the agent has taken the time to hire a professional photographer, that shows that they understand quality and want to represent that property in a professional manner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. So
off my soapbox.
Yeah, no, and that's what I was kind of setting up for, and I was kind of hoping you were going to go there, because I completely agree with you that first impressions are everything. Mm-hmm. And if your listing agent is in the photo of your house, that's not a good first impression. No. And the other thing that's one of my pet peeves on that is a lot of times they'll take vertical and horizontal photos because they're like, oh, this room might look better horizontal, vertical. That's a horrible user end experience for buyers when they're on Zillow or Realtor.com.
It's all cropped.
They're looking, it's all cropped, all weird.
They can't see what you're trying to show in that vertical photo anyway, because it crops it. Yeah. The only time that I will take vertical photos is if it's specifically for social media. Mm-hmm. Then maybe that vertical format might be better. But if it's being listed on the MLS, it needs to be horizontal.
Yeah. Couldn't agree with you more on that. So, all right. So let's dive into controversial topic number 2.
Okay.
When it comes to real estate marketing, I recently had a number of buyers who tell me this home doesn't look the same when we're in it as it did online.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So much of that falls on the photographer. We need to be choosing, like, I have a specific lens that I use for real estate photography. If you shoot with a lens that's too wide, I don't know if you've ever looked at listings where the kitchen looks like it's massive and then you get there and it's really tiny. Yep. That has to do with our lens choice. So for me, it's a matter of picking a lens length that will accurately show that property. We always want to make it look like itself, but like a little polished. Yeah. That makes sense. I think it's like when you go to take a picture of yourself, you don't want to look tired and, you're going to comb your hair. You're going to do things to make yourself look better in your photos. It's the same thing with when we're taking a picture of a property. We're going to make sure that it looks like itself, but just a polished version of that. And we can definitely dive into what it takes to make that happen, that a seller can do on their end to make what we do look better and look more like its actual representation when we take the photos.
Okay. Yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit later then. We'll save that one for later. Okay. Staying on this topic specifically, like I have buyers that, like I said, they walk into a house, they go, this room doesn't look the same. And that's over editing on the photo, right? Is that like, without getting too nerdy on this, because I know both of us I have a little bit of photography background as well. So we could totally get in the weeds, but I don't want to.
No, that's okay.
On that. But as far as like, there's just so many things in a photo you can tweak to make colors change. Yeah. And I'm not talking about like actually removing or we'll get into that in a minute, but not changing the photo, but enhancing it as far as the contrast, the brightness, all these things.
Right.
Like, what do some photographers out there do that you would say over enhances it?
I think the biggest thing is just making sure that you're true to color. Like you were mentioning, you don't want to make a room appear way desaturated when it's really warm. If somebody's coming in there thinking it's white walls and they're actually yellow, that's not going to be good. I think that there's it's called HDR, which is a way that I shoot, but it can be really pushed to the other end of the spectrum where it's like over sharpened. It almost has this, I want to say like cartoony effect. I don't know the right word for that, but
that's a good way to put it.
It definitely, to me, when you walk into a house like that, it's not going to look the same. It's not going to feel the same. On that note, you can do a property a disservice by not lighting it up enough. Your pictures look dark and it's really not dark in that property. That comes down to making sure that we light it correctly and make sure that it looks like it does in person.
Yeah. So, and then switching gears to enhancing, but from a modification standpoint. An example would be there's houses out there online where the photo might have been taken in winter and the grass is dead, but the photographer went in and spray painted the grass green in the photo afterwards.
Yeah. It's amazing how much I get asked to manipulate a photo. And there are ethical lines that I think we shouldn't cross based on misrepresenting a property. So it's one thing if you're going to virtually stage, for example, and that's where we would take like fake furniture and put it in. I think that's fine. It gives a buyer a visual representation of what is possible. What I don't think is fine is like what you're saying. If it is completely dead grass and we're photoshopping in green grass and there's no statement saying that this isn't actually the way it looks. Buyers are going to get there and be like, I thought it had grass and it's dirt. That would need to be something that would be said if the photo is going to be edited in that manner. Also things like I cannot and will not remove power lines because if there is an iron giant right next to this property and I take it out, then when people go to look at that property, they're going to be like, oh, there's a giant power line here that I didn't know existed. So even though it may not be as appealing, we shouldn't be taking things like that out of
that's not ethical at all.
Right.
It's a misrepresentation of what the product of the property.
So that would be an example of not taking things out. Also the same as like adding things in like the grass.
So let's dive deeper into AI since you said virtual staging.
Yeah.
So right now, I think it's kind of becoming the trend where agents that have a property that's vacant or where the seller's already moved out of it are using AI, or photographers are using AI to put furniture into the properties. So I have my own personal opinions about that, but I want to hear what your personal opinions are and professional opinions are about virtual staging and then using AI to do virtual staging.
I think like anything, there's a line. AI, I'm okay with as a way, like I said, for example, virtual staging. If you're putting just fake furniture in there, in the same way that if we photograph that house with a seller's furniture in, they're taking that with them. So it's not changing the room. If you're putting virtually staged furniture in, it's not changing the room. Where my line is if we're virtually changing the paint color of that room or the flooring in that room. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it. So that would be the line that I wouldn't cross with AI and virtual staging and that kind of thing.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. I mean, it's definitely possible. My brain didn't even go there with the thing. My concern more is like someone puts a bed in a bedroom and the AI or the software doesn't. An example would be like a regular bedroom, and then someone puts a bed in there, but makes the bed smaller than what the bed would actually be. So that's my hang up with all this virtual staging stuff is that the proportions could be intentionally or maybe unintentionally modified to make a room look bigger or alter the way it looks because the furniture is not correct to size.
It's a valid concern. It's a valid concern. I've seen it where it's like dollhouse furniture, and I'm like, "Ooh, that's bad. That's not accurate."
Yeah.
When I do virtual staging, I have my editor do it, and I always am reviewing it to make sure that it's something in line with what I'm after. The examples that I've run into is, when we're shooting a room, you can typically see 2 to 3 walls. If they're going to place furniture and they're making sure that the wall that you can't see if the bed's coming out of it, but there's a door there or something, that might confuse a buyer into thinking that they're able to place furniture like that. And you can't, because there's a window or a closet or something like that. So that's where it would fall on me to make sure that I'm not giving the agent a picture that does misrepresent that property. And that's only going to be known because I was in the house and I saw it. Yeah.
That's a great point. So that kind of goes into the next controversial topic I have, but it's kind of a piggyback off of this one too. And then that's going to be, virtually staged photos, which we just covered that. But that was going to be my third controversial topic is sometimes buyers will see and they're like, oh, this had furniture in it when I saw it online. And you're like, no, it didn't, because I've seen a lot of listings lately where the same photo is on the MLS twice, where it's the one that's empty, and then there's one with the photos, and then there's a stamp or a watermark, as we would call it, that says virtually staged.
I think that's the best way to do it. It's the most transparent. I always include the empty and the virtual staged when I do it, because I think that you should put both in there. It just, as somebody's looking through the pictures, they're going to realize, but definitely putting a disclaimer on there is really important. It's kind of in line with when I'm doing drone photos and I'm putting those property lines around.
Yeah.
I have a little disclaimer at the bottom that says these are non-surveyed estimates.
Yeah.
Because I want that buyer, when they're looking at it, to know that this is not an exact survey. This is an estimate of where your lines are. It's just to give them an idea of the property boundaries, not to say this is exactly where those property boundaries are. That's what the GIS is for.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that's a wrap on our controversial topics. I don't have any more. Those are the main things.
Awesome.
So let's shift gears a little bit, especially with today, because we have had some weather. We have some more weather in the forecast tomorrow. As a photographer, mainly the inside of a house, it doesn't really matter what the weather is outside.
Disagree.
Okay, let's double tap on that.
Okay.
Tell me why.
So I often get asked that if it's raining outside or it's really stormy, can we just do the inside? The reason that I typically will say no is if we're getting a monsoon and that rain is coming down really hard, it gets on the windows. And I can't Photoshop that out. I do have capabilities of maybe changing a cloudy sky to a blue sky, but it can still impact the views. And typically around here, views are so, so important. If you have a view of granite, but you can't see granite because the clouds are super low, even if I'm shooting the inside, you're not going to be able to capture those views. So those would be things to consider. Does the water impact it? Are the views impacted? There have been times I'm able to do it if it's bad outside and come back for the outside, but it really just depends on what that actual weather situation looks like. And that can be snow, that can be rain. The times that I would say that the weather would impact the outside but not the inside would be wind. So there's a threshold for me where I can fly my drone safely. If it's super windy, I may have to come back to do the drone photos versus I could still do everything from the ground and the inside just fine.
Yeah. So then what's your take on weather? So an example, like I said, was today it's kind of cloudy, overcast, so it's not horrible. The sun is really soft. You don't have a whole lot of direct light today. What's your take on shooting in that kind of weather?
So I just came from a photo shoot in Prescott Country Club, and it was actually pretty decent. It was a little overcast, didn't really have any views. I was able to do that property just fine. On the drive over here, I could see that Granite Mountain is not visible. So again, if it was a property that had views, I would ask up front, are your views the way you want them to be? A little overcast is fine. It's not super windy. I could probably still fly. It would more depend on the views for that property and how much that's going to play into its selling value.
Okay. And then what if you have snow on the ground?
Ooh, some people think that's really beautiful. Some people don't. I personally don't mind like a fresh layer of snow, but if it's kind of half melty and it starts to look really sloppy and dirty, I would just say wait until it melts, especially because here it melts so fast.
Yeah.
It's like a day or two and it's gone. But But what I will say about snow is it dates when your pictures were taken.
Yeah.
So the fact that we don't get a ton of snow throughout the winter and people tend to remember when it snowed. I mean, I'm sure you remember the last time it snowed here. I do. If you have pictures with that snow and it tends to sit on market for a while, people are going to know it's been sitting on market for a while right off the bat, just because when those pictures have snow in them.
Would you say the same's true for a listing that's got really green, beautiful trees and foliage in it that's, summer? Versus, and then we're trying to sell it in the winter when we know it's not.
It can go both ways on that, because I have properties that I'll photograph in the summer intentionally when they know they're not going to hit market until the winter. And it's because they want to be able to showcase what it looks like. But sometimes what they'll have me do is take winter pictures too. So it's like, here's what it can look like in the summer and here's what it looks like in the winter.
That's smart.
But I think people tend to overlook that a little bit more than they do if there's snow. Something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because the snow is just pointing out, like, you're not going to not see it.
Same reason that I say take calendars down inside. If we're shooting a house in an office and there's a big calendar on the wall, I'll usually suggest we pull that down, because it'll have, the date right on it, and it's an indicator of how long it's been sitting there on market.
Yeah, that's a good point. So let's shift gears to social media marketing a little bit, because we were talking about marketing listings, not diving too deep into the weeds on specific platforms. But how can real estate photographers like yourself and obviously marketers collaborate with sellers and their agents to create more effective social media campaigns that can reach the buyers that they're trying to target specifically?
So my main thing, as if I was going to talk directly to sellers, would be to trust your agent. They've hired you for a reason. You guys know your marketing and what works for you, and every agent market's a little different. If social media is a strategy that you're using specifically, then they should trust you to pick the right media for me that's going to then do that. So I will talk with the agent again. What is the special thing about this house? What are you trying to have me show? What would you like me to show for this? And then I'm also on social media, so I will share things that my agents post, and then that gets it in front of more eyes, because my main audience is realtors. So it kind of expands the reach for that seller's property when we get it in front of more eyes.
Where would you say is the best place to go? If you had to choose one digital platform right now on the internet, besides ZillowRealtor.com, MLS, right? Other
so
than
just
the
social
MLS.
Media.
Yeah, if you want to talk about social media, but also expand it to, let's say, YouTube, because a lot of people don't consider YouTube to be social media as well.
That's interesting.
So,
I think different platforms, things are going to show up better on. It used to be that Instagram was real heavy for photos. YouTube's obviously video. If somebody's marketing well-rounded and they're doing a little bit of both, I say to hit all of those. So I think that's a more is better kind of thing. My platform of choice tends to be currently Instagram right now, because it has the video and photo capability. I'm seeing a huge resurgence in YouTube. It's really interesting.
Awesome.
I felt like it went away for a little while and now it's coming back. I used to get asked to do a lot of vertical format video as people were really heavy into like Instagram and TikTok. And lately I'm finding people asking for horizontal, because YouTube seems to be kind of, I don't know if it ever went away, but it sure seems like it's making a resurgence. So maybe a little of both.
Yeah, good to know. And then Facebook, you can do both of them on.
Yes. Facebook, I think it depends on your target demographic. So again, if you have a property that may be more appealing to a slightly older generation, I'm going to say marketing on Facebook is fantastic. TikTok is going to be more that younger generation. So kind of look at the demographic of who would be buying and then focus your social media strategy on that.
Yep, I agree with you on that. So why would you say it's so important to have high quality media for those posts, to share on these platforms, instead of an agent just walking through with their shaky cell phone doing it themselves?
Right. People tend to look at pretty things. Just the reality of it. If you're scrolling through infinite amounts of social media posts, you're going to stop on the one that looks professionally done. If you have bad sound, people don't want to watch or listen. If it's just real shaky and it makes you dizzy, people don't want to watch it. So having a higher quality media out there in a sea of quality that maybe isn't as good is going to make your property stand out.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. People stop and look at pretty things.
They do.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So,
at its core, that's the reality of it. What would you want to look at?
Yeah.
Something that's shaky and bad quality, or something that's professional, sounds good, looks good? That's typically
and there's a place for the quote unquote raw stuff. So like if we dive into Instagram, I personally do a lot of raw material, but it's on my stories. Where it's supposed to be first view, person view, kind of personal experience, not the polished. It's a different lane of marketing than
I 100% agree.
The polished posts and carousels and all that. Which
I also do a ton of stories that are unpolished, which for me feels really weird because everything I typically put out is that polished version. But I've actually been finding for my stories that people are connecting with a little bit more of that raw, real. They want to see what you're doing. They want to know who you are as a person. And when you are a little bit more unpolished in those correct avenues or those places where you can be, I think it gives that more emotional connection, which is going to be better for your marketing.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, it feels more real.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, and especially with AI and everything coming on the scene, which you're taking the human component out of it. It's important to put that human component back into it.
Yeah. So we're going to shift gears. We got one more topic to cover.
Okay.
And that's going to be basically if you can talk to sellers directly. Because I know a lot of times, correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes you go to listings and a seller might be there, but more times than not, they're not there, right?
It's kind of 50-50. It really depends on kind of the agent. Some agents, even if it's an occupied residence, will ask their sellers to leave. And they're just like, let us take care of it. Go have lunch, walk your dog, something like that. But there are properties where there is a seller in there. And even with that being said, there's still, if it's an occupied residence, that seller is living there. So there's definitely things that they can do, whether they're going to stay while I take the photos or if they're walking their dog, that help me out tremendously and make their property look better.
Let's dive into some of those.
Okay, so first things first, it's not personal, but get rid of the personal items or hide as many of those as you can.
So no baby dolls? You want the baby dolls to get put away?
The baby dolls are so creepy. Put them away. The baby dolls are always creepy. On that note, kind of a hot take on this is taxidermied items.
Yeah.
That's big here.
Not everybody's a hunter.
Not everybody's a hunter. So maybe minimizing that stuff or taking it down for photos, I think is always a safer bet. Personal photos, minimizing how many of those are out. And then things like toothbrushes, your razor in the shower, stuff like that. Just tucking and hiding that stuff away. It just doesn't give somebody the heebie-jeebies when they're looking at your photo or your video. Just putting all that stuff away. Plus, it's less for the eye to look at. You want them to be looking at your countertops and your flooring, not at your toothbrushes and your rugs.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, countertops tend to feel bigger the less items they have on them.
Yes, and especially like a kitchen island, if somebody puts a huge flower arrangement right in the middle, that's going to block what I can see of like maybe the beautiful range that's behind it. So if you want a flower arrangement or something in there, I'll just typically say to move it maybe onto the back counter or somewhere more strategic so it's not blocking.
What about decluttering?
Huge. Yes.
Please. I feel like it's not talked about enough.
Like, it's so bad.
When you go show properties and even in listing photos, I don't know if agents, sellers, I'm talking directly to you right now. I'm looking into the camera. I don't know if your listing agents are even having the conversation with you. But seriously, that goes back to what Jen and I were just talking about with countertops, decluttering your countertops, declutter your whole house.
Yeah.
Get a storage unit, get some bins, throw them in there. If you don't have the money for a storage unit and you have a garage, get bins. Throw the bins in the garage, park your car outside. Like it's that important.
I would much rather have a decluttered home with full closets or a
that's
packed garage and not take photos of the garage than have it all throughout the house. Because they are looking to buy the property, not your stuff. Now, some stuff can be nice, a certain amount of staging I think does warm up a property, but we just tend to have things out. Plus, it looks different in the lens than it does in person.
Yeah.
Always looks different through the lens than it does in person. The things that we typically live with, I can't tell you how many Kleenex boxes I have to hide on a daily basis. Just take the Kleenex box and stick it under the counter, or soaps. And the reason for that is you can have a completely neutral color palette and then bright orange soap. And your eye just goes right to that soap. So just tuck it away so that it's not a distraction. It just looks a lot better.
Yeah. So sellers can really help you by decluttering and doing all these things before you show up for the photo and video shoot.
And on that note, also pets. Everybody's got them. We typically love them. It's one of my favorite parts of the job. I love petting dogs, but their stuff has to be hidden. So dog bowls, food bowls, toys, beds, especially if you have large animals, cats, scratching posts, all of that should be hidden. I like to make it look like there aren't pets in the home, because for the people who don't want pets, they're going to make assumptions right off the bat if they see a giant dog bed in the house versus if that's just hidden away. So take all the fur baby stuff and tuck it away.
That's a great point.
In that closet or garage.
I haven't thought about that. Yeah, that is such a great point. What about availability, specifically with exterior photography, for being available or having the house available at a certain time of day? Maybe it's got a east-facing front door. What's your opinions on all this stuff?
Everything I do revolves around the sun and the time of day. So a lot of times I'll ask which direction the home faces if I have the opportunity to talk about timing. The safest bet is, midday, because the sun's going to be pretty much overhead and you're going to get even light all the way around. But that being said, there are certain directions I think the light on Granite Mountain is better in the morning because it's getting front lit, just like the light on Mingus tends to be better in the afternoon. So if I have my druthers and there's views, that kind of thing, I'll kind of touch base on that when it should be done. But in the winter, my window of shooting time is a lot smaller because the hours are shorter than in the summer. I have a lot longer. So if it starts to get too late in the day, you end up with those real long shadows that may not be as flattering for the outside of the house as if we get more even lighting.
That's such a great point with the mountains. Like, again, this is why we're having this conversation, because I've been an agent for a while, but I've never talked to a photographer that's had that in mind. Typically photographers I've worked with in the past, they'd be like, oh, well, I want the front of the house lit up. So like if it's east facing, you might want to do a morning shoot, or if the front door is west facing, you might want to do an afternoon shoot. But actually taking it that next step further of like, is the mountain lit up in the background? Because that's the view.
It's the view.
So that's a huge selling point.
Views can be more important to me than, like, if the views are what's going to sell the home, then let's focus on the views. If it's the front curb appeal of the house, then let's focus on the curb appeal. But maybe the front of the house isn't really what's going to sell it. It's that backyard. So maybe you want the backyard lit better. So it's really just a matter of like touching base, getting back to that lifestyle. Why is somebody going to buy this house? Is it the amazing backyard? Is it they have this incredible front deck? All of that really makes the difference.
Yeah, so you're showcasing, it's like where we started at. You're showcasing the lifestyle, but also the area and everything that encompasses.
It's more than
photo,
just the house.
home. It's not just the bedrooms and the bathrooms. So awesome. I think that's all the topics that we had today, but I do have a lightning round. Do you want to go into the lightning round?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, so we got some quick fire questions here. Jen does not know the questions.
Okay.
So question one. If you could pick one word to describe the current real estate market, what would that be?
Ooh, busy. I mean, for me, it feels very busy this year, way more so than last year. I'm seeing a lot more listings hitting the market. Yep.
That's what we're seeing too, statistically, through the local MLS stats. We are having more houses come on market right now.
I feel like from what I'm seeing, anybody that was potentially holding off is jumping and getting ready to list now.
Yeah, we saw a big wave in January. So a lot of the, after the new year, people actually did jump off the fence that they said they were going to.
And historically for me, I don't start speeding up until March or April. And my January and February have been very busy. So busy is my word.
You're going to have to hire some more people. So I know you've got one photographer that works with you, right?
Yes. I have my partner, Michelle. She's amazing. She came on board with me in May. But we're both basically at capacity. So big plans.
Well, thank you for carving time out of your day, busy schedule to come sit down with me.
Absolutely.
Lightning round question number 2. If you were going to buy a second home in northern Arizona, where would it be and why? Specifically, which city and why?
I right now I'm in the Flatland. I'm in Pronghorn in PV. So I would want to be in the Pines. I have this fantasy of a little A-frame cabin in the pines. So that's where I'd pick.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like around Prescott area or
Yeah,
Flagstaff?
Prescott.
Or?
No, I'd Prescott.
Okay. Cool.
Prescott's home.
Groom Creek, Walker.
Probably at Walker.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Not too far, but you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's only 15 minutes from Costco.
I know.
And it's paved.
Costco.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's so beautiful up there in Walker.
I love it. I love it. And like I said, I think it's when I go out there, when I'm in that area, it just feels peaceful. It feels like you're so far removed, but you're really not. You're not that far.
Yeah.
So that would be my go-to.
It does. Well, you've got the nice buffer with Lynx Lake and then the Forest Service land. Like you really do feel like you're driving into the forest before you even get into that community.
Yeah. And there's not very much cell service.
Yeah. So
it's a nice break.
Yeah. Next lightning round question. If your life was made into a movie, what would the title be?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe mom of 3, wife, trying to do it all. Something like that. I mean, I'm in a really good place in my life where I've got my business up and going. My kids are thriving and happy marriage. So right now I feel like I'm set up to be able to chase my dreams, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Feels pretty balanced and...
Oh, no.
Oh.
No.
I think balance might be a pipe dream anyways.
It is. I think I'm working towards that. You know, having good people on my team, finding that balance, I think is an ever evolving way of being. I always choose a word of the year. And my word this year was cultivate.
Okay.
So
that'd be your movie title then.
There you go. I was going to say maybe that's my movie title. Yeah. Yeah.
Who would play you in this movie? Who would be the star actress?
I don't know. Who do I look like?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe Kristen Bell?
I'm not, I'm more of a book girl. I don't watch a lot of TV, to be honest. I'm much more of I love to get into a good book and get lost there.
Right on.
Yeah.
And then the last one for the lightning round. What is a surprising skill or hobby that you have that most people probably don't know about?
Well, I think most people know about this because I post about it, but I love running. I have set myself a challenge this year to do a race per month.
Oh, wow.
So I'm looking to do 12 runs in 12 months, which means I have to carve out time for running. And that's difficult. That's part of that finding balance. But I also want to show my kids that you can do all the things you want to do and have personal goals outside of that. Because for me, part of finding balance is having that work, life, and spiritual connection there and getting all those things into a place where you feel like you can thrive. For me, running is like my mental health.
Oh, good.
That's where I kind of find my meditation, my time, which sounds opposite of what it is when you're out there feeling like you're dying, but that's what I love to do.
There's a very similar aspect to that with mountain biking.
Yeah. Michelle's huge into mountain biking.
They know, so I am too. So that's kind of what you're describing feels similar to how like riding a mountain bike is because it's physically exhausting. Like if you're doing it right, you know, it can be physically exhausting and then you're just, I don't know. But anyways. Yeah. And I think being outside, reconnecting to that part of it, what we do is so tech-based and I'm inside a lot. And so being able to have that time when I'm running to get outside. I also like camping, that kind of stuff. Just reconnecting with the simple things in life. Yeah. It feels good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for having me. Yeah. So where can the people find you? Where can, potential home sellers in the area, get in touch with you or see your work? Yeah. So my website is Jenn Lueck Photo, and Lueck is Lueck. So Luck with an E in the middle. And then I'm on Instagram and Facebook under the same thing. My Instagram is Jenn Lueck Photog with underscores in between. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Right, thank you. We'll catch you all next time on the Northern Arizona Real Estate Podcast. Like I said, thank you for joining us today. If you haven't already subscribed to us, be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify. And you can also watch this on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube watching this right now, you can also watch our video on YouTube. So, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week.